let's look at one of the biggest proofs. So when you're talking about FE or scriptural creation model, however you label it, scriptural cosmology, the one of the go-to proofs that people, the first things they'll bring up is lunar eclipses. So let's go ahead and tackle that one first. So you want to read this one?
Yeah. A lunar eclipse occurs when the sun, earth, and moon align so that the moon passes into the earth's shadow. In a total lunar eclipse, the entire moon falls within the darkest part of the earth's shadow, called the umbra. When the moon is within the umbra, it will turn a reddish hue. Lunar eclipses are sometimes called blood moons because of this phenomenon, according to NASA.
And so it was interesting. The last blood moon, how many months ago was that? I don't remember. A couple
Couple?
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. So we take care of an elderly lady, and so her power of attorney that handles all of her business. We were at her house, which is a couple houses down where we live, and she has a family member that worked at NASA for like 30 years, and I just wanted to get like a explanation of why does the moon turn red? I mean, their explanation doesn't make sense. So it was interesting. She had him on speakerphone. I was like, yeah, that's cool. I get to talk to a former retired NASA employee. I think he worked on the space shuttle. So that was back in the day. And we were talking for a few minutes. And then I asked him, have you ever heard of a Selenian eclipse? Which we'll get into in a minute. And he said no. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Somebody that worked for NASA for over 30 years has never heard the term selenium. That's so
Wow.
hard. That's one of the biggest proofs for the globe is a lunar eclipse. So I think that's the next slide. Oh, nope, it's the video about the moon turning red. So let's see what they have to say about that. And then we'll get to selenaliums. Selenalian. Say it right, Matt. We'll get into those in a few minutes.
A blood moon lunar eclipse wasn't always something to look forward to. When the moon turned red thousands of years ago, the ancient Mayans and Mesopotamians feared that something monstrous and evil was eating the moon. They would shout at the night sky to try and fend off the ravenous beasts. And since the average lunar eclipse lasts around 100 minutes, and the moon returns to normal afterward, they were probably convinced that their whooping and howling actually worked. We know now that the moon doesn't need our protection, but why does it turn red in the first place? Whenever you look up at a full moon, you're seeing sunlight that's reflected off the lunar surface. So if something were to block that sunlight, say the Earth, then in theory, the moon should disappear from view. But during a total lunar eclipse, when the moon passes through the Earth's shadow, we get a red moon. Not a vanishing one. So what's going on? To figure it out, let's take a quick trip to the lunar surface. This is a NASA simulation of what the Earth looks like during a total lunar eclipse. Notice the red ring around our planet. Everywhere you see that ring is either a sunrise or a sunset. And while it's true that no direct sunlight is reaching the lunar surface at this moment, Earth's atmosphere is bending the red wavelengths of light around the planet. So that redness you see during a blood moon eclipse is a combination of light from every sunrise and sunset on Earth, all happening at once. So the moon appears red for the same reason that sunrises and sunsets on Earth are red, because of a phenomenon called Rayleigh scattering, named after the British physicist John William Strutt, also known as Lord Rayleigh, who discovered it in the late 19th century. It describes how different colors of sunlight interact with the Earth's atmosphere. Look at the sky during daytime, for example. It appears blue because air molecules in Earth's atmosphere scatter blue light more easily than red. But during sunrise and sunset, the light travels through more of Earth's atmosphere before reaching your eye, which has two consequences. First, it means more overall sunlight is scattered. making the sun appear dimmer. That's why you can easily gaze upon the sun at sunset compared to at high noon. And secondly, more scattering means more blue light is scattered away, leaving the redder wavelengths behind. Similarly, the ring around Earth during a total lunar eclipse is red because the sunlight travels through a long stretch of Earth's atmosphere, from one end of the planet to the other. So rather than fear a blood moon like the ancient Mayans and Mesopotamians, why not think of it as a romantic moment? After all, it's the only time when you can see the sunrise and sunset simultaneously.
Are you buying what he's selling, Josh?
Yeah, Earth is wrapped in a giant rainbow, but only the red.
Yeah. What
According
about
to
the
their
other
animation.
colors?
Yeah.
Oh man. So let's go back in the day and let's see what Mr. Robotham has to say about this. So this is from Zetetic Astronomy. Highly recommend it if anybody hasn't read it. This page 45. So this is written by Samuel Robotham, I think in 1901, early 1900s. We cannot draw any other conclusion than that the moon is obscured by some semi-transparent body passing before it and through which the luminous surface is visible. The luminosity changed in color by the density of the intervening object. This conclusion is forced upon us by the evidence, but it involves the admission that the moon shines with light of its own. And we can see that many times in scripture. That is not a that it is not a reflector of the sun's light, but absolutely self-luminous. A reflector is a plane or concave surface which gives off or returns what it receives. If a piece of red hot metal or any other heated object is placed before a plane or a concave surface, heat is reflected. If snow or ice or any artificial freezing mixture is similarly placed, cold will be reflected. If light of any color is placed in the same way, the same color of light will be reflected. And I believe I have an example. Yeah, here we go. So here's I don't know where I found this meme. So here's what a sphere reflecting light actually looks like. And like it says, take all the time you need. Take a screenshot if you need to. And think about it later. You got anything on that, brother?
Yeah, it's funny. I've done the same thing, and someone said, "Oh, it's because there's a white background." And so I took the stone and removed the white background and put it right next to the moon, and it still looked exactly the same. And there's no
Yeah.
lights that we have or objects that I know of that will reflect sunlight and make it colder when it hits the observer. I mean, I can stand outside my house and the sunlight reflects off those windows, and when it hits me, it's hotter than the sunlight
Yes.
itself, almost like it's warm. You
Yeah.
can feel it. And the moon, so far away, quarter of a million miles away, reflecting light from the sun, and that light is somehow colder when it comes and hits us. The sun or the moonbeams are colder than moon shade. It's impossible.
Yeah, and for anybody that's not familiar with what he's talking about, people use a laser thermometer at night and then they point where the moon is directly shining, and then they point where there's shade and it is warmer than the moonlight. So that disproves the whole nonsense that it reflects the sun's light. Now we shall view the Selenelian video, which is really short. I think this is in Alaska, I believe. I could be wrong, but it's a really neat video.
It's 12 minutes after 6 p.m. and we've been able to see both the partially eclipsed moon and the sun for approximately 17 minutes. We're about to lose the sun. And there's the partially eclipsed moon.
So what we just viewed, and you can find many of these videos online, YouTube or whatever, is the moon and the sun above the horizon. That's why that Selenelian is called an impossible eclipse, because it debunks what they say causes lunar eclipses. And their explanation is the light refracts over the.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look up like these flat Earth debunk sites and other sites, other, I don't know if you really want to say real scientific websites, but mainstream science sites, that's their explanations for selenium are ridiculous.
Yeah, that would
And
be hard to witness, like those people witnessing it. And like the one guy, the video you showed at our meetup, he's trying to explain it. He's like, the light's hitting this way and going around the earth. No, it's going over. And he's like trying to picture it in his mind. And when you're thinking of it from a globe mindset, it's frustrating because you have to come up with some explanation outside of the given reality. And that's where we all need to work together and figure out, I mean, technically, if you want to get down to it, I'm fine not knowing how that works. I know that there are so many mysteries, but for some people, it's just a deal breaker. They're like, it doesn't work on a flat Earth. Well, that doesn't work on a globe either. It might work on a globe sometimes, but not all the time. And that's where that scientific method comes in, where you should be able to repeat it. And we should be able to take a model of similar scale and repeat that. And we can't.